Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Today, I want to take you guys back in time. I said when I started this channel that eventually I would get to the point where I would tell my story. And, I really want people to understand that although I'm not where I want to be in life, I am moving in that direction. And I did make some decisions along the way that has moved me forward. And then I've also made some decisions that have moved me backwards. So if you're new to this channel, um, thank you for stopping by. If you are a subscriber to this channel, double salute to you. Thank you so much for tuning back in. Thank you for coming on with my journey. Go ahead and take this time right now to subscribe to this channel. What I do on this channel is I talk about, my journey chasing financial freedom. I talk about some of the things that I'm doing to get to the point that I am now and some of the things I'm looking to do into the future. And I also like to invest overseas. And I have a video about how I bought a property sight unseen in Mexico. Hopefully it pops up right there. You could check it out there. But today I really want to talk about how I got to the point where I am today. If anybody knows me, they'll know that I'm a family man. I'm I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. And I when I was young, I started to notice that I had a knack for wondering. Right, I was a big dreamer when I was young, and I told this story to my wife, and I never like to put anybody out there, so I'm not going to say any names to this story. But there was a summer when I was young. I can't remember how it was. Maybe I was an early teen, maybe preteen, and my entire family, like all the boy nieces and nephews and cousins, they ended up going on a trip. The crazy thing about it is I didn't know about the trip at all. So I ended up going to my grandmother's house, and we were at my grandma's house, and while I was there, one of my grand uncles actually pulled up in a big camper. And I was like, "Oh my God, man, what's this big camper?" I'm a young guy, so I'm amazed. I came from a poor family. We were pretty poor. I don't want to say poor. My dad was military, but we didn't have a lot. It was six of us in the family. My mom didn't work. It was pretty much my dad taking care of us, and we didn't have a lot, right? We did okay. But I had family members in my extended family that was doing well. And so I remember that Saturday at my grandma's house. I'll never forget it, man. It's crazy because in my mind, like from my childhood, there's not a ton of things I remember vividly, but there are a few things that I do remember very vividly. And those are things that I know that I've had an immense impact on my life. And I remember that camper, that big old camper pulling up. And all of my cousins were at my grandma's house. And I just thought it was a regular day. Come to find out, unbeknownst to me, that my granduncle had planned to take all of the cousins on a trip in his camper. I can't remember where they were going, but they were going to be going somewhere nice where kids my age would want to go. And me and my brother were not invited. And I just remember being crushed. Like I'm watching everybody at my grandma's house, like they're all getting their stuff. Hey, make sure you got this, make sure you got that. And me and my brother just sitting in there, just pretty much just looking stupid. And I started crying and stuff. And my mom was like, "Don't cry." And nobody ever gave me an explanation, which was crazy about our community. Is like even to this day, I've never gotten an explanation as to why my brother and I were left out on that trip. But what it did for me is that is the point where I started remembering that I was curious about having more, right? I remember looking at my granduncle's big old camper, and I was like, "Man, it'd be great not to just go, but how was he able to get that camper? Like what did he have to do in his life to get that camper. Like, we don't have a big old camper, right? We just got a car. We got one van that we all share. But this my granduncle, he has cars and he has this big old camper. And I remember thinking like, man, like how do you get stuff like that? And that's like my first memory of me, one, being disappointment, but then also wanting to, me flipping that switch in my mind that I wanted to have stuff. And me and my wife have this conversation all the time. She tells me I'm a dreamer. And so, she actually, my wife really is very really smart. She doesn't give herself enough credit, but she's very smart. And she told me that part of why I'm so successful, or why I have been successful, is because I'm a dreamer. She said that's where it starts. She said you got to have that imagination. Then imagination turns to desire, and then desire turns to drive, and then you actually go out and get stuff. But I never really thought of it that way. But when she put it like that, I started to kind of reflect on my life, and I was like, man, she is right, man. I am a dreamer. You know, I don't. I look at things and I'm like, how can I get that? She says she looks at the perspective of, ooh, I wish I had that. And those are two distinctly different mindsets, right? And I'm not knocking her mindset, and she wasn't knocking mine, but she just wanted to point out to me that basically part of the reason why I am where I am today is because I'm a dreamer, and dreamers dream things. And some dreamers actually go out and do stuff, and some dreamers, they just continue to keep dreaming. But I'm a dream to actually put my dreams into action. So I just thought that was I thought that was an interesting story to tell. But 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 that experience with my granduncle kind of like opened my eyes to understanding that like people can have other stuff, right? um and I didn't know the path to get it, but I knew I wanted to go down that path. So fast forward through life, of course, I'm older, I'm married, I got a daughter. My daughter, she plays basketball. She's doing well. We're going on all these tournaments all around the country. I'm basically going in all types of debt, like just to maintain this lifestyle. If any parent knows that has been on that circuit, that AAU circuit, um, it's a lifestyle, right? And so you're out there with all these parents, and you're basically going from city to city to city. Now, I will say that I was lucky that the organization that my daughter played for covered a lot of the hotels and stuff for us, right? So anytime we had a major tournament stuff, she was a top player in the country. So anytime like they paid for our hotels and stuff, so we didn't have to pay for the hotels and stuff. But and then sometimes we didn't have to pay for food, but that's not all the expenses, right? So, but that's not all the expenses when you're living in that world, right? You got the expenses of, you got to eat while you're there. You got there's all kind of trinkets when you go to these tournaments. um Everything's expensive, all the prices are inflated. There's the cost to travel to these locations, like, so we're driving sometimes we're flying, right? So you got to pay to get there. There's times where they cover flights and stuff, but sometimes you had to pay. But even if they cover some of those expenses, like being there in that fraternity is expensive, because all these parents are there, their kids are buying, like, they're selling like socks, they're selling hats, they're selling armbands, they're selling all this stuff at this tournament. And my daughter's a top player, so she wants to look the part, right? So of course I'm spending money, I'm swiping that credit card, man. I had them big old credit cards, and I maxed out a lot of cards. And long story short, I maxed out a lot of cards. So I got promoted at my job, and it moved us to Atlanta, where I live at now. Well, I live outside of Atlanta, but it moved me into Atlanta. And so when I got to Atlanta, I started to meet a different crowd. And this is, I also talk about bubble too, but that's a whole nother video. But what happened is when I moved from Greenville to Atlanta, what it did was it allowed me to get outside of the bubble that I was living in. And that bubble was like the go to work crowd, and then, go home, be a good family man, hustle crowd, right? Just kind of living a regular life. But when I moved to Atlanta, it was a different crowd, right? So you got the go to work people, right? Because I'm still working, I still got my full time. So, but the difference was when I got to Atlanta, the people that were going to work, they also were doing something on the side. It was a side hustle, the land of the side hustle, the land of the hustlers. So it was different. And so I started meeting different people that had different hustles, different side hustles, different doing things like that. And I started running in different crowds, right? And so these people were investing, they were doing real estate, they were doing, they were doing a trucking business. They were moving people, like they were doing stuff on the side, and we all had a good job. Like I was at the time, like I was working a six-figure job. But what I started seeing, I was like, man, these people, these are six-figure guys, and they're doing stuff on the side. And so I started looking. I'm like, man, my daughter had graduated. She went off to college, so I wasn't on that circuit anymore. So I had to fill in that time of like taking her to AAU tournaments. Like that was my thing. Like I was really into basketball. I was hardcore into making sure that, she was going to do well at basketball, make sure she was getting her shots up. If you're a basketball parent, you get it. Like I was putting a lot of time. It was like a second full-time job, just, being there for my daughter, trying to help her get to the next level. And so I did that. I accomplished that. She got a full ride scholarship, starting point guard. She ended up graduating with a master's, job well done, right? But as daddy, like, what do you do with all that time that you were putting in with your daughter, right? Of course, you could spend more time with your wife. We only have one child. So yeah, of course, I started spending more time with my wife. We started, connecting with each other more. But I still needed to have that other thing, like the passion. Like I had a lot of passion built up for, making sure she was good at sports, and I needed somewhere to put that. And so I got into real estate, and I started looking at opportunities to purchase properties. And so I came across this thing. It was a rooming house, and I started seeing that people in Atlanta were actually like buying apartments, and they were renting the rooms in the apartments in like these low income areas. And so I was like, man, this guy, he was actually selling his rooming house, and he was selling it for like $40,000. And I was like, man, he want $40,000 for an apartment. And I read the notes, and he was saying that he was making $3,000 $3,500 a month. And I was like, man, that's a great investment. Like, of course, I'm not an investment guy yet. I'm not into real estate. But I knew that, like, if I could spend $40,000 to make $3,000 a month, 3,000 times 10 times 12, that's 36,000. I got almost all my money back in a year, minus some expenses. I'm like, that sounds bad. That was kind of my rationale for it. And so I called the guy, me and the guys talking and stuff. And so I finally go down there. I said, let me go take a look at this and see what's going on with this guy. And I go downtown, I meet this guy in one of the craziest hoods in the A. Back then I didn't even know how I didn't even know where I was at. Like I didn't even know how much I had really put myself at risk, because I was oblivious to the situation. But anyways, I went there, and so it was crazy. Like this dude literally had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. It was a townhouse, upstairs, downstairs. And he had rooms like cut in half. And this dude was like renting like to a person each room. And so that's how he was making 3,000, 3,500 a month. He was charging all these people weekly. But it was a transient situation, right? And when I looked at folks, you could, some people probably on drugs and things like that. But I'm in my mind, I'm like, man, this is some money, man. I think I could do this. And so the crazy thing about it is, I'm like, man, my wife is like, oh, I was telling my wife about it. She like, oh, and she she a little bougie. She like, I don't know, man. It seems like, and so I'm like, man, but I'm like, my eyes are like, oh man, this is a crazy amount of money. I can get rich doing this. Like, I'm crazy. And so I end up, the crazy thing about it is I can't remember, but somehow I ended up getting in contact with the neighbor. So come to find out, the neighbor in the apartment next door, he was selling his too. He was selling his too. The guy that I was talking to was selling his because he was going back to Florida. But the guy next door, he was renting it as a rooming house, and he was selling it. So I actually started talking to him. I don't know how I started talking to him, but I ended up talking to him. And so maybe I came there and he was there or something. But anyways, I ended up taking a tour of the house next door. And so he had his place set up a little bit different. So the guy that was in the 3 bedroom, 2 bath had like all the rooms were like cut in half, and he was just making maximum money off of each room. And so the guy that I went to see next door, he was different. So he basically had the master bedroom cut in half, and then the other 2 bedrooms right upstairs. So there was 4 rooms upstairs, and then he had like the kitchen part, the dining room. He had like a room for that, and so that was 5. And so he had 5, and he was like, "Okay, you can make this." And I was like, "Man, that might be a better situation because it's not so much people to manage. I don't want to have to manage 10." And a couple of the people had couples, and so I was like, "Man, I think this is a better situation I'm in." So I ended up buying the house next door. The crazy thing is, I didn't have a lot of money saved up. I already told you I was in a whole bunch of debt because of doing the AAU thing. So I actually went out and I got a loan. I got a loan for 40,000, I think $45,000 from one of those online banks. I ended up getting a loan. I think I ended up getting 70. I got two. I applied for them both at the same time, and I got approved for both of them. That's right. I ended up getting like almost 80,000, and from because they didn't know about the other loan, and so I ended up getting $80,000. So I said this will be enough to renovate whatever I'm going to do. I can't remember what the payments were. The payments were whatever they were back in the days. But anyways, I got it, but I didn't care because I was like, I'm going to make enough to make these payments. I ain't really worried about it. I think the payments were like maybe $800 or $900 a piece. It's like less than 2,000 for both. So I was like, I'm gonna make X. I'll be good. And then of course I'll have extra money, right? Because I'm not gonna spend all that money renovating. So of course I go in, I renovate, and I'm not gonna take y'all through all the ups and downs with that, but I'll tell y'all like this, man. For about a year, it was good. It was so good that I actually bought another house and did another room in house, and I've really ran up the bag. I paid back my loans and everything. But what happened is it ended up being crazy. Some crazy stuff started happening. Found out that it was really the hood. Like people was out there doing crazy stuff. Some crazy stuff happened in one of my properties, like ridiculous. So I ended up selling it to a guy who was he was doing rooming houses, and I put it up for owner finance sale. And so I told the dude I sell it to him for 70,000. Remember, I bought it for 40 about a year ago. I sold it $70,000 owner finance, and I took $15,000 down. So he gave me 15,000 cash, and the goal was he was supposed to pay me like $5,000 a month, and he was supposed to pay it off quick. Of course, that did not happen. He ended up not paying it off like in time, but he did not pay me 5,000 a month. I think he paid me 5,000 for like 2 or 3 months, and then after that, he was paying me like 2,000, 2,500. But it didn't matter. I had already paid back my loans. So I started adding interest on it. So I ended up, by the time it was all said and done, I ended up getting like $90,000 for a property that I paid $40,000 from a year ago. So I mean, almost pretty much double my money on it. So it was a good thing. But the crazy thing about it is that's how I got in this business. So I just wanted to tell you guys my story of how I got into business. That kind of propelled me into the world of investing. I learned so many lessons about the type of houses to buy, the type of properties to buy, the different areas to buy in, and things like that. It was basically me taking that chance on myself, saying that, hey man, I want to try to find a way to get ahead. And that was a crazy venture, but it got me 100% out of debt, right? I was able to pay off my loans. I basically flipped that house. And then from there, I started having money. And then I was able to take that money and keep putting it into the next thing. And then it just kept growing into me now basically having um 10 properties and then one in Mexico. So and this happened probably back in 2019. So in 6 years now I have 10 properties that I actually manage and do short-term rental with, or overseas, or full-time rental. And so just in that period of time I really ran it up, but it took with me taking a chance on myself and really being focused on what I really wanted to do. So but now it's more of a formula, and this is why I like to do this, because one, I like to connect with other people who are like-minded. But then the other thing is I'm really passionate about people who want to improve their situation. If I really like to help people, because I like seeing people win. I mean, the great thing about it is if you create a community of winners, man, you can even win even more. So I want to be around, like, forget this crabs in a barrel mentality, right? We got to start coming together to elevating each other. Now you elevate people. Now you got a community of people who are elevated. I remember having a conversation with my nephew not too long ago, and he's doing well right now. He has his own moving business now. He was in trucking. Now he's a moving business. Um, but I told my nephew that. I was like, man, he was talking about, going out and stuff like that. And, I was like, man, I want to get to the point where like we're going out, but like we're like flying to Miami, like going to the best places. Like we're not even, when we go out, like we're really going out, like we're going to the top places. Like when we go on a vacation, like we're going on a vacation, like we're going to the high end resorts floating on the water. Like that's what we're trying to do. Like that's what I want to get to. But you got to have a community of people. Like you can't just enjoy that type of stuff by yourself. So if you don't have a community of people that's actually doing big things, then like what are you how you going to enjoy life? It just can't be me and my wife and my daughter. Like I want a community of people. So that's what I'm really trying to create here, is a community of people who really want to get ahead, so they can start experiencing some of these things. I say a lot on my videos. If you watch my videos, I'm like, hey man, y'all need to listen. Like, y'all need to start running these plays. Like the time is now. I'm telling you, there is no better time than it is right now to get out here and start running these plays. And no matter what play you use to start, just run a play. You'll find out, as long as you run the right play, you could definitely put yourself in a situation for success. But the great thing about it is there's people who is out here right now that have already gone down the path that you want to go down. If you want to go down the short-term rental path, I'm your guy. I know all about it, right? Like I made deep six figures last year in short-term rentals, right? I'm proven, and I'm a regular guy. I work a full-time job, right? So I'm not this influencer that's on here saying, hey man, nah, I'm not that guy, man. I work a full-time job. I don't tell people to quit their job. I'm still working my job and I ain't going nowhere. You know why? Because I love my job, right? And guess what? Now I'm working. In one video I talked about that I live for free, and I really do, because my short-term rental business, I live in a duplex. I actually ran my own play. I bought a duplex and I live in one side, and the other side makes enough money to pretty much pay all my bills. So, but the great thing about this short-term rental business is it's causing me to not pay any taxes on my regular ordinary W-2 income. See, that's the ultimate, man. That's I ain't even gonna get into that. That's the next level. That's why you got to get out here and get your LLC and start your business and keep your job until you don't have to. And then when you don't have to, then you let it go. But the ultimate play is, now I'm basically working almost tax free. Because remember, I told you I got a six-figure job, and I make a deep six figures on a short-term rental business. but I'm barely paying taxes. All legitimately. All legitimately. If you like content like this and want to follow me, please hit that like and subscribe button. And also put in the comments, like, what kind of crazy thing that you did to get your business started? If you're doing business right now, like, what was your first investment that got you going? What was the first risk that you took? Let me know in the comments what you guys did to get going. I love to have that discussion. But thank you everybody for tuning in and keep running those plays. Peace.